Hello, and welcome to Sorrow of Insight. This is a space where we explore the ideas, experiments, observations, and sometimes the uncomfortable questions that emerge while trying to build a better life, a better career, and a better understanding of ourselves. Recently, Saurav completed a 72-hour water fast after spending several weeks transitioning through one meal a day, OMAD, reducing sugars and carbohydrates, and preparing his body for the challenge. As people around him became aware of what he was doing, the questions started arriving. Some came from friends, some came from family, some came from colleagues, and some came from people who simply couldn't understand why anyone would voluntarily go 3 days without food. So today, we're bringing all those questions together in one conversation. This isn't medical advice. It's not a scientific paper. It's simply one person's experience and the reasoning behind it. So let's start with the obvious question. What exactly is autophagy, and why were you interested in it?
In simple terms, my understanding of autophagy is that when food is not constantly coming into the body shifts into a different metabolic state and begins recycling older or damaged cellular components. What attracted me wasn't weight loss. It was the idea that the body has evolved repair and recycling mechanisms that become more active during periods without food. Scientists are still studying these processes, and there is still much we don't fully understand. But the possibility of giving my body a chance to perform deeper maintenance was something that fascinated me.
Why did you decide to do a 72-hour water fast now?
Honestly, it wasn't because something was catastrophically wrong. I am currently building Saurav Insight Consultancy, working full-time, raising a young daughter, and dealing with all the normal responsibilities of life. The responsibilities are real. The pressure is real. The uncertainty is real. But I remembered something from lockdown. During that period, I experienced a level of clarity and lightness that stayed with me. Not happiness, not perfection, just clarity. I wanted to see if I could intentionally create some of that space again. There was also a practical reason. After experiencing pain on the upper right side of my abdomen, I went through blood tests and a scan and was told I had mild fatty liver. That diagnosis made me pay much closer attention to my health.
Why specifically 72 hours? Why not 24 hours or 48 hours?
Because this wasn't my first experience. During the COVID lockdown, I completed a 72-hour water fast. Back then, I had been exploring intermittent fasting and learning about extended fasting. I came across doctors and researchers discussing autophagy and became fascinated by the topic. The first fast worked, but it was difficult. This time, I wasn't trying to prove toughness. I was trying to do it properly. And based on my previous experience, 72 hours felt like a meaningful challenge while still fitting into my life and responsibilities.
You keep saying properly. What did you do differently this time?
Preparation. That's the biggest lesson. The lockdown version of me relied mostly on willpower. The current version relied on preparation. Instead of jumping straight into a 3-day fast, I gradually transitioned. I reduced my eating window, then I moved to 1 meal a day. Then I reduced sugars and carbohydrates. My goal was to allow my body to become comfortable using stored energy before asking it to go 3 days without food. I also paid much more attention to hydration and minerals than I did during my first fast. The results surprised me. The second fast felt dramatically easier than the first one.
You mentioned minerals. Why?
One of the mistakes I made during the lockdown fast was assuming that water alone was enough. This time, I spent much more time learning from people who had actually completed extended fasts. Again and again, I kept hearing about the importance of maintaining electrolytes and minerals. That preparation made a huge difference to my experience.
A lot of people will ask this question. Why didn't you ask a doctor before doing it?
My GP absolutely played an important role. The GP helped identify the problem. The blood tests and scans revealed the fatty liver diagnosis and gave me guidance around lifestyle improvements. The fasting experiment came later. At that point, I wasn't seeking a diagnosis. I was trying to implement lifestyle changes. I spent years reading, watching discussions from medical professionals, following people who had completed similar fasts, reviewing research, and reflecting on my own previous experience. I also used AI extensively, not as a doctor, as a research companion.
That brings us to another question. Isn't trusting AI dangerous?
Blindly trusting AI would be dangerous. Blindly trusting almost any source can be dangerous. The real question isn't whether information comes from AI, YouTube, a book, or a person. The real question is how you evaluate it. I didn't complete a 72-hour fast because one AI conversation told me to. I had already been interested in fasting for years. I had already completed a previous fast. I had already spent a lot of time researching the topic. AI helped me organize information, explore questions, challenge assumptions, and think through preparation strategies. I don't see AI as an authority. I see it as a thinking partner.
What was the hardest part? Was it the hunger?
Surprisingly, no. The hardest part came during the transition period before the fast officially started. I remember one day at work when my body was adjusting. My energy dropped, I was sweating, but simultaneously feeling cold. It happened to be office cleaning day, so there was physical work involved as well. After work, I still had to cycle home. I grabbed some peanuts and blueberries before making the journey. That day reminded me that preparation isn't just physical. You still have to live your life.
What was your biggest fear going into the fast?
My daughter. Seriously. She's extremely active. At the time, she was around 15 months old. Anyone who has a toddler knows they can transform a room into chaos in seconds. I had already completed a 72-hour fast before. What I hadn't done before was manage a weekend with a highly energetic toddler while consuming nothing but water. That was the variable I respected most.
What was the funniest part of the whole experience?
Watching the social system activate itself. My wife started by politely asking me to eat. Then she became concerned, then annoyed, then angry. When that didn't work, she involved my mother. My mother followed almost exactly the same process. Then some of my wife's friends became involved and suggested that she should tell me to eat. If that failed, get angry. If that still failed, call my mother. At some point, I stopped seeing individual reactions and started noticing a pattern. Different people, different locations, exactly the same script. And honestly, it was funny because it came from a place of care. Food is one of the primary ways people express love and concern. In their minds, a husband, son, and father voluntarily not eating for 3 days was clearly a problem that needed solving.
At what point would you have stopped?
The moment it started affecting my responsibilities. If I couldn't properly care for my daughter, perform my job, support my wife, or function safely, I would have ended the fast. The goal was never to prove toughness. The goal was improvement. If the experiment started interfering with the responsibilities that matter most, the experiment would have ended.
What changed afterwards?
The biggest change wasn't dramatic weight loss. It wasn't some magical transformation. It was my relationship with food. I still enjoy food. I still know desserts taste good, but something shifted. The attraction became quieter. The automatic pull became weaker. I found myself asking a different question. Not, what does this taste like? But what does this do inside me? That doesn't mean I became perfect. It simply means I became more conscious. And for me, that's probably the most valuable outcome.
Would you do it again?
Yes, but only because I prepared properly. If this experience taught me anything, it's that difficult things become much easier when preparation begins long before the challenge itself. The lesson wasn't really about fasting. It was about preparation. The lesson wasn't about willpower. It was about creating the conditions that make success more likely. And perhaps most importantly, it reminded me that sometimes the goal isn't to become someone new. Sometimes the goal is simply to clear enough noise that you can hear yourself again.
I think that's a good place to leave it, not because every question has been answered, but because the point was never to convince anyone to do a 72-hour fast. The point was to understand why you chose to do it, what happened, and what you learned from it. Saurav, thank you for sharing the experience.
Thank you. And before we finish, there's one final thought I'd like to leave people with. If you followed my work for a while, you'll know that I'm less interested in giving answers and more interested in exploring questions. This fast wasn't really about food. It was about attention. It was about awareness. It was about understanding what happens when we deliberately remove something and observe what remains. Whether that applies to food, social media, work, relationships, or the stories we tell ourselves, the principle is often the same. Remove the noise, observe what remains, then decide what deserves to be rebuilt. If you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to share it with someone who might find it useful. And if you have questions, disagreements, or experiences of your own, I genuinely love to hear them. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and keep searching for your own insights. This is Saurav Insight. Thank you for listening.